If you've ever wondered what all the different field effects are in Pokemon, you've come to the right place. I've divided up all the field effects that we're going to go over into 4 categories: rooms, terrains, pledges, and miscellaneous. As for weather, well, despite it being a field effect, I won't be covering weather in this video since that's a whole other beast worthy of a separate video. That being said, let's talk about field effects.
They betrayed me, they didn't keep their promise, they tricked me, and I don't care anymore.
To start, let's go over the rooms. There are 3 kinds of field effects described as rooms: Trick Room, Magic Room, and Wonder Room. Among these, Trick Room is by far the best and most used one. Trick Room is a popular form of speed control that reverses the turn order such that slow Pokemon move first and fast Pokemon move afterwards. However, positive priority moves will still go before neutral priority moves, and negative priority moves will go last. Trick Room is most popular in VGC because VGC games tend to be faster paced, meaning that the short duration of Trick Room isn't a problem. In singles, however, Trick Room is only used as a hyper-offense strategy since the short duration is a hindrance. The best of users typically have to rely on a different Pokemon to set Trick Room and then pivot, which is very exploitable. Trick Room also activates the Room Service item, which lowers the holder's speed by 1 stage, but this is generally not a very good item. Overall, Trick Room is a cool field effect that enables a unique team archetype. Not unlike my bedroom, the next 2 rooms see almost no action compared to Trick Room.
What?
First among these is Magic Room, which disables the effects of most items. The only exceptions are Megastones and Z Crystals. Moves which require the use of an item like Fling and Natural Gift will fail. Moves that are changed by an item, like Judgment, Technoblast, and Multi-Attack, will become normal-type moves. Magic Room also has a group of glitches known as Choice Item Lock glitches. This is generally not a popular move since it also turns off your own items, and the one time I saw somebody use it, they lost. I don't recommend trying to build around this, but if you can make something work, more power to you. The last room is Wonder Room, which makes me wonder why it exists. Wonder Room swaps the defense and special defense stats of all Pokemon on the field. Wonder Room also swaps the effects of Beads of Ruin and Sword of Ruin. It can also affect which stat is raised by Beast Boost. Otherwise, there's really not much to talk about here, since Wonder Room is simply not good. One final note regarding all of the room type effects is that if the respective move is used while the effect is active, the effect will be deactivated. Simply put, using Trick Room while Trick Room is up turns Trick Room off.
What the hell is that? That doesn't make any sense!
Now for our beefiest section, Terrain. There are 4 terrains to cover: Grassy, Electric, Psychic, and Misty. Before we get into that though, it's important to note that many terrain effects do not apply to ungrounded Pokemon. Ungrounded Pokemon are the ones with a flying typing, the ability to levitate, are holding an air balloon, or are under the effect of telekinesis or magnet rise. Ungrounded Pokemon are not affected by the passive terrain effects and do not receive the bonus effects of Grassy Glide, Expanding Force, and Misty Explosion. To make things clear, the notes on the left side of the screen that are bolded are the effects that do not apply to ungrounded Pokemon. That being said, let's get into the terrains themselves. Let's start with Grassy Terrain, which has a lot of effects. Firstly, Grassy Terrain is typically set by Rillaboom and Tapu Bulu, which have the Grassy Surge ability. It can also be set by hitting a Pokemon with the ability Seed Sower. The main effects of Grassy Terrain are as follows. Grounded Pokemon heal 1/16 HP at the end of the turn, Grass-type moves are boosted by 30%, and the power of Earthquake, Magnitude, and Bulldoze are reduced by 50%. Furthermore, Floral Healing is boosted from 50% HP recovered to 2/3. The ability Grass Pelt only activates in Grassy Terrain and provides a 50% defense boost. Finally, Grassy Glide has +1 priority while Grassy Terrain is active. Grassy Terrain is pretty common in both VGC and Smogon singles because of how good Rillaboom is, so being aware of all of these effects is important since you'll be seeing them pretty often. Now for Electric Terrain, which is also pretty busy. Electric Terrain is set by Pincurchin and Tapu Koko via Electric Surge and by Miraidon via Hadron Engine. Hadron Engine also boosts Miraidon's special attack by 33% while Terrain is active. The main effects of Electric Terrain are as follows. Grounded Pokemon cannot be afflicted by the sleep status while in Electric Terrain, and will wake up if they are already asleep, and Electric-type moves are boosted by 30%. Pokemon with the ability Quark Drive will receive a 30% boost to their highest stat unless that stat is Speed, in which case it is boosted by 50%. Pokemon with the ability Surge Surfer will have their Speed stat doubled under Terrain. The base power of Rising Voltage is increased from 70 to 140 if the target is grounded. Electric Terrain was formerly ubiquitous in Ubers, but now that Miraidon has been banned, it's no longer common. Electric Terrain is still sometimes run because of how powerful the boost provided by Quark Drive is, which Jim Z Cool recently covered in this video. On to our third terrain, Psychic Terrain. Psychic Terrain is set by Tapu Lele and boats Indeedis. The main effects of Psychic Terrain are as follows. Grounded Pokemon cannot be hit by moves with increased priority, and if they are targeted, the move will fail. Psychic-type moves are boosted by 30%, and the base power of Expanding Force increases from 80 to 120, and changes from a single target move to a dual target move in doubles. Psyblade also gets powered up from 80 to 120 base power. Psychic Terrain is incredibly common in VGC, as it enables powerful Pokemon like Calyrex Shadow and Armarouge. Furthermore, Female Indeedee is a fantastic support Pokemon with options like Follow Me, Helping Hand, and Trick Room. Psychic Terrain teams are also an archetype in singles, albeit an uncommon one. Psychic Terrain is typically used on very aggressive teams, so expect a barrage if your opponent has an Indeedee. Our final terrain is Misty Terrain. Misty Terrain is set by Tapu Fini and Galarian Weezing. The effects of Misty Terrain are as follows. Grounded Pokemon cannot be afflicted by statuses, although those already afflicted will not be cured. Dragon-type moves will be reduced in power by 50%. The base power of Misty Explosion is boosted from 100 to 150 if the user is grounded. Misty Terrain is by far the least useful terrain, and was only common in Gen 7 and 8 because Tapu Fini was really good. Now that the only setter is Galarian Weezing, it's virtually never seen. This is because while other terrains have powerful synergies that buff their respective types, Misty Terrain doesn't really buff fairy types at all. This is probably a good choice on the part of Game Freak because fairy types are already very strong to begin with. As such, Misty Terrain is pretty much irrelevant in Gen 9. Before I wrap up terrains, I'm going to go over some stuff that applies to all of them. Firstly, seeds. Each seed is activated only when the holder is in the respective terrain, regardless of whether or not the holder is grounded, and receive these defensive boosts upon use of the seed. If Pokemon is holding the item Terrain Extender, the duration of any terrain set by them increases from 5 to 8 turns. The base power of the move Terrain Pulse is boosted from 50 to 100, and changes type to match the terrain. It also receives the 30% boost provided by Grassy, Electric, and Psychic Terrain. Terrain will be removed from the field by the moves Ice Spinner, Steel Roller, and Defog. Terrain is also removed by Terrapagos' ability Terraform Zero, which only activates when it terastallizes. Finally, here's a list of all the effects of terrain that are deprecated as of Gen 9, so if you're interested in some past terrain effects, here they are. Now let's get into a unique kind of field effect, pledges. What makes pledge moves stand out is that they can only be summoned by using 2 different pledge moves in the same turn, meaning that they are only possible in doubles. The 3 pledge effects are Rainbow, Swamp, and Sea of Fire. Pledge moves have a few special properties. With the exception of these guys, only starter Pokemon can use them, which means distribution is pretty tight. Also important is that pledge moves work like the move Round. When 2 Pokemon on the same side use a pledge move, the slower user will go immediately after the first one and use the boosted version that applies a special field effect. Unlike Round, only the slower pledge user will actually attack. Finally, pledge moves are special and alone are 80 base power, and combined are 150 base power. First among the pledges is the Rainbow, which is the result of combining fire and water. The Rainbow doubles the chances of proccing secondary effects on the user's side of the field, effectively giving your Pokemon Serene Grace. Rainbow actually stacks with Serene Grace, meaning that something like Jirachi is guaranteed to flinch with Iron Head. Moreover, Rainbow also doubles the chance of getting a flinch from King's Rock and Razor Fang. Interestingly, there's a glitch with the Rainbow and Charge Beam that causes the chance of Charge Beam increasing special attack to overflow and roll over to 24%. If you love cooking, Rainbow is rife with opportunity. Next is the Swamp, which is created by grass and water. The Swamp is created on the target side of the field and quarters the speed of those Pokemon. This also applies to ungrounded Pokemon, which pretty makes the Swamp the ultimate form of speed control. For reference, Swamp makes Pokemon slower than if they are paralyzed and affected by Sticky Web. If you're looking for the Sticky Web on a Liver King dose of steroids, look no further than the Swamp. Finally, we have the Sea of Fire, which is created by fire and grass. The Sea of Fire causes Pokemon on the targeted side of the field to take an eighth of their maximum HP at the end of the turn. However, fire types are immune to this effect. This effect is nice for chipping down opponents since they will take a total of 50% over the course of the effect, and also guarantees damage even if your target goes for Protect. If you want raw damage, then Sea of Fire will be your pledge effective choice.
That is huge! That is absolutely huge!
Now that we've covered the effects that can generally be categorized, it's time for the miscellaneous section. First, and chief among them in importance, is Tailwind, which is the single most important field condition for speed control in VGC. Tailwind doubles the user's Pokemon speed for 4 turns, and since there's no direct counterplay to Tailwind, this makes it a great support move on Pokemon like Tornadus. Gen 9 introduced two abilities that interact with Tailwind, Wind Rider and Wind Power. Wind Rider raises the user's attack by one stage when Tailwind is set on their side, as well as when they are hit by a wind move. Wind Power works the same way, except instead of granting an attack boost, it gives the user the charge effect, which is just not as useful to be honest. Neither of these abilities are super relevant, but you should be cognizant of them when playing VGC. Tailwind isn't really useful in singles since the effect is generally too short-lived to be worth the turn of setting it up. In VGC, however, Tailwind is a staple that you should always keep in mind. Next up is an important one, Screens. Screens include Reflect, Light Screen, and Aurora Veil. Reflect halves damage from physical moves, Light Screen halves damage from special moves, and Aurora Veil halves damage from both unless it's in doubles, in which case it decreases damage by 33%. Notably, Aurora Veil can only be used under snow, which makes it a lot more predictable than Reflect and Light Screen. All of these effects can be boosted from 5 to 8 turns if the user holds Light Clay. Because these are so powerful, there's a lot of counterplay. Firstly, screens will be removed if a Pokemon under them is successfully hit by Brick Break, Psychic Fangs, or Defog. Critical hits will ignore the defense boost provided by screens, and the ability Screen Cleaner will remove all screens from field on entry. Infiltrator allows the user to bypass screens and deal damage as if they weren't there. Screens are important in pretty much every level of singles and VGC, so understanding the benefits and counters is of paramount importance. Next up is perhaps the most unique field effect of all, Gravity. The basic effect of Gravity is simple, it grounds all Pokemon on the field. This causes flying types, levitate users, and air balloon holders to all be affected by grounded effects, such as Earthquake or Terrains. However, there's more to Gravity than that. Gravity increases the accuracy of all moves by a factor of 1.67, excluding OHKO moves. It also prevents the use of these moves, which will all fail if used under Gravity. Finally, it increases the base power of Graveable from 80 to 120. Gravity is pretty gimmicky, and usually revolves around getting something powerful to spam Earthquake, or enabling low accuracy moves such as those used by Hustle Pokemon. It's not something you'll hardly ever see, but it can be a fun strategy to build around. For the final few miscellaneous effects, I'm going to do a lightning round since none of these are really worth talking about in detail. First up are the sport effects, Water Sport and Ground Sport. Water Sport reduces the damage taken from Fire-type moves by 67%, and Ground Sport does the same for electric moves. These apply to all Pokemon on the field, or perhaps I should say did, since they were Dexited in Gen 8. Second up is another Dexited effect, Lucky Chant. Lucky Chant protects the user side of the field from critical hits, including moves that otherwise guarantee crits, like Frost Breath. Third is a field effect that actually still exists, and has since Gen 1, Mist. Mist prevents the opponent from lowering the stats on the user side of the field, but this does not prevent self-inflicted stat drops like those of Shell Smash. Mist can be removed by Defog. And for our final field effect, we have Safeguard, which prevents the user side from being afflicted by non-volatile status effects, as well as confusion applied by other Pokemon. Safeguard is similar to Screens in that it is bypassed by Infiltrator and removed by Defog. Okay, that was a lot of information in rapid succession, but at least be thankful that I didn't get this guy to narrate the video.
Freddy, the cosmic situation, you do not wish to challenge you when I wrote the calibers just indicated by the presence of pool table in your community. Will get some of my friends right here, say to avoid River City, West Room, a good place, so my part same was my part savings, the RSS, the coon, my hand, golden, heavy kind of portions at Cool and Key 9.
I honestly think everyone who watches this will have at least learned something though, because there are a lot of little details when it comes to field effects. I didn't even cover everything, but the info in this video should cover about 99.9% of interactions you'll see with all of these. If you're still listening, thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you'd like to see me cover weather in this style. I appreciate you listening to me yap, and I'll see you next time.